Have you ever woken up, strolled over to your beautiful saltwater aquarium with your morning coffee, only to discover an absolute visual nightmare? Just a thick, suffocating red slime rapidly taking over your pristine rock and sand. It is so incredibly frustrating to watch your carefully curated miniature ocean get blanketed by this ugly menace. But hey, don't panic. You are absolutely not alone in this battle. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to act a bit like ecosystem doctors treating a patient. We're diving into comprehensive research on cyanobacteria outbreaks in reef tanks to understand exactly what causes this red plague, and, way more importantly, how to fix it without crashing your whole system. Okay, let's dive right into this. We have a clear 4-part treatment plan today to lower that anxiety. We're going to start by identifying the red menace, move on to diagnosing your tank-specific triggers, then roll out some fast and practical fixes, and finally wrap up with how to prevent future outbreaks.
So, starting with part 1, identifying the red menace. What exactly is this stuff?
Well, before we can treat the symptom, covering your rock and sand, we really have to understand exactly what we're looking at. The enemy here is cyanobacteria, or just cyano, as we usually call it in the hobby. Now, there's a massive misconception we need to clear up right out of the gate. Cyano is actually not an algae, not at all. It's a bacteria that forms these dense mats. They can be red, brown, or even dark green. Honestly, when you see this carpeting your tank, it's essentially acting like a giant neon check engine light. It's signaling a fundamental environmental imbalance in your reef.
But there is an incredibly reassuring insight to remember here. The research notes that while it isn't always a sign of a single bad thing, outbreaks usually point to conditions that favor bacteria over your beneficial microbes. I really want that to reassure you. A cyano bloom does not mean you're a bad aquarist or that you've totally failed. It simply points to a microbial imbalance where the bad guys currently have a bit of an advantage over the good guys. And we can absolutely correct that.
Moving right into phase 2 of our triage, diagnosing your tank's triggers, or finding the fuel. We need to investigate what is actually feeding this outbreak in your specific system. Now, what's really interesting about this is how cyano surges usually come down to a combination of available fuel and favorable physical bottlenecks. First up, you have elevated nutrients, specifically dissolved organic matter, phosphates, and sometimes nitrates. Next is organic buildup, from either overfeeding your fish or maybe letting your filtration get a little dirty. But it's not just food. Reduced water movement creates these stagnant microzones right on the substrate where cyano just thrives. And finally, light plays a huge role. Long photoperiods, intense direct lighting angles, or even spectrum changes can heavily boost this photosynthetic bacteria. We also have to consider timing here. If you have a newly cycled tank, or even a tank you've recently made major modifications to, your bacterial communities are likely in a state of temporary instability. This lack of balance is literally like leaving the front door wide open. It allows cyano to easily get a foothold before your beneficial ecosystem fully matures and stabilizes.
All right, section 3. Fast and practical fixes. It's time for triage and control.
So we know what it is and we know what feeds it. Now we need a quick fix that reduces the cyano's advantage without destabilizing your delicate reef. Here are 4 immediate, straightforward husbandry changes you can make. First, just physically remove the enemy. Siphon those visible mats right out during your regular water changes. Second, increase your water flow to eliminate those stagnant dead spots we just talked about. Third, exhibit a little restraint and reduce feeding for a few days. Just be sure to carefully observe your fish's behavior while doing that. And fourth, stop guessing and start testing. Confirm your key water parameters, nitrate, phosphate, and if possible, keep an eye on your alkalinity and salinity stability. And this brilliantly illustrates one of the absolutely most critical warnings in reef keeping. Looking at the left side, we have abrupt chemical swings. You want to avoid large, sudden chemical dumps, especially in established systems. Doing this can severely harm your corals and, ironically, actually worsen the biological instability that caused the cyano in the first place. Contrast that with the right side, gradual parameter management. Many cyano problems improve significantly when phosphate is brought down gradually and nutrients are managed consistently over time. Like they say, slow and steady wins the race in a reef tank. Alongside those parameter corrections, you can also use targeted short-term strategies. Because cyano is photosynthetic, you can literally turn down its energy source. Adjusting your photoperiod downward temporarily, like say running shorter days for just a few days, can severely reduce the cyano's photosynthetic drive. Then, once the outbreak recedes, you just simply return to your steady lighting schedule.
Now, if the cyano persists, it's time to put on your detective hat and hunt for hidden organics. Check for decaying detritus deeply trapped in your sandbed. Inspect your mechanical filter components to make sure they aren't clogged or being bypassed by debris. And definitely look for uneven flow that might be encouraging organic buildup. Even really small changes, like providing better sand agitation in very specific zones, can make a measurable difference in just a week or two. Just be incredibly careful not to blast that nasty detritus directly into the open water column. That's a mess you don't want.
Which brings us to our final phase, Section 4, Preventing Future Outbreaks, the cure for long-term stability.
Now that we've triaged the immediate threat, we have to look long-term. So the crucial point is this biological cure. You want to create an environment where the good microbes naturally starve out the cyano. Prevention is entirely about stability. When you keep nutrients in a workable range and just avoid long periods of water stagnation, your beneficial bacteria and algae competitors are going to naturally outcompete the cyanobacteria. To actually achieve that, you need a strict stability routine. This means maintaining a consistent feeding schedule, so no massive binge feeding days, right? It means performing your regular water changes like clockwork. You've got to ensure that your filtration and your power head flow actually match the bioload of the livestock in your tank. And perhaps most importantly for troubleshooting, start documenting your test results and feeding changes. Seriously, writing things down helps you pinpoint the exact patterns behind a bloom so much faster. I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to evaluate your own setup. Is your tank suffering from a chronic imbalance, or is it just a temporary swing? If you're seeing repeated cyano outbreaks despite consistent maintenance, you might have a chronic issue on your hands, like persistent high-dissolved organics, ineffective nutrient export, or maybe lighting and flow that just doesn't quite match your tank size. Don't just settle for scrubbing the mess away week after week. Empower yourself to fix the root cause, correct those underlying conditions, and give your reef the balanced, thriving environment it truly deserves.